Welcome back to When Nature Strikes. I'm your host Brian, and tonight we turn the clock back to October 2012. This is about a storm that was brewing in the Caribbean, and one that would defy expectations, break records, and change lives forever. This is the story of Hurricane Sandy, but most of us know it as another name, the Superstorm. There will be no sensationalism here, only the story of the storm and the devastation that it left behind, and the resilience of the people who survived it. Hurricane Sandy began its life in the warm waters of the Caribbean on October 22nd, 2012. At first, it was just a tropical wave, probably located close to Africa, and over time, it drifts across westward to the United States. The warm seas usually give it strength as it moves across, so you usually see the formation of a tropical wave to a tropical depression into a tropical storm, and then into a full-blown hurricane. By October 24th, Sandy had reached hurricane status near Jamaica. What made Sandy unique was not just its path, but instead of following the classic curve out to sea, which it usually does, but this one took a direct aim at eastern seaboard of the United States. But before it could reach the US shores, Sandy unleashed devastation on Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and the Bahamas. They all felt its wrath. Homes were destroyed and the roads were washed away, along with crops and livestock. In Haiti alone, hundreds of thousands that were already vulnerable from the 2010 earthquake, which we actually covered, they were left homeless once again. So these people were in the process of rebuilding, and 2 years may seem like a long time, but when you're trying to rebuild homes and infrastructure, 2 years isn't that long, and they get devastated in Haiti once again by this hurricane. By the time Sandy left the Caribbean, at least 70 people were dead across the region. You can assume that's from storm surge, because storm surge is the killer when it comes to hurricanes, because water is devastating. It drowns people. The storm was only gaining strength. As Sandy moved north, something strange began to happen. Normally, hurricanes weaken as they approach colder waters. You'll see the opposite happen in the Gulf of Mexico. We know that there's a correlation between warm waters and hurricane strength. This one merged into something massive. It collided with a powerful winter storm at the time, so it became almost like two storm systems in one. And by October 28th, which was 3 days before Halloween, the storm was nearly 1,100 miles wide, which is the largest Atlantic hurricane ever recorded. So to put that into perspective, if you look at the map, the storm reached from Canada all the way down to Florida. So look at the map, you can see how big that is. From where I am in Canada, near the Great Lakes, it's about a 16-hour drive to Florida. So that's how big it is. Meteorologists were stunned over what happened, because it wasn't just a hurricane anymore. It was a hybrid monster based on the nor'easter, and obviously the hurricane that it is. So that's why this was nicknamed Superstorm Sandy. On the night of October 29th, 2012, Sandy made landfall near Atlantic City, New Jersey. Winds reached 80 miles per hour, but wind wasn't the biggest threat, and like I said, it's the water, it's the storm surge. New Jersey saw storm surge over 14 feet, and that was pushed into the coastal communities, New York Harbor, Long Island, and the Jersey Shore. They were all swallowed by the sea. In lower Manhattan, the subway tunnels were filled with water, flooding a system more than a century old. The lights went out across the city, and hospitals had to evacuate because their backup generators began to fail. The iconic boardwalks in New Jersey were ripped apart and tossed out into the ocean. For millions, life was instantly changed into chaos. Over the next few days, the devastation became clear. Entire neighborhoods were gone. In Breezy Point, New York, floodwaters sparked fires that burned more than 100 homes. Families lost everything: cars, photographs, heirlooms, entire histories. They did, however, keep their memories. And for many, many lost loved ones due to the storm surge. In the United States, at least 159 people died, and I think the combined death toll over Haiti, Jamaica, and a few other places, I think it was around 230 lives lost. Millions were displaced, they lost their homes, and they needed somewhere to go. And the damage count for homes in New York and New Jersey was over 650,000. For weeks, 8.5 million people lived without power, some in the freezing cold as winter began to set in. This is in the northern part of the states. Up where I am around the Great Lakes, you can definitely see the weather really start to change as you approach mid-October. So when they say there was a nor'easter coming, there must have been some pretty cold temperatures. So after this hurricane kind of pushed through, I'm assuming that colder temperatures set in. Airports shut down, gas shortages sparked long lines at gas stations, and we kind of see that similar pattern through the hurricanes that we looked at in Florida. And in the middle of it all, ordinary people stepped up. Neighbors always help neighbors, and strangers always seem to come out of nowhere to help a lending hand. Hurricane Sandy was not only a humanitarian disaster, it was an economic one. The damage was estimated at $70 billion, making it one of the costliest storms in U.S. history. Businesses had closed, infrastructure collapsed, and transportation networks such as the subway were crippled and destroyed. The insurance companies faced claims on a scale that they had never seen before. But numbers only tell part of the story. Behind every dollar lost was a family trying to rebuild, a small business owner trying to start over, or a community left wondering if life would ever return to normal. In the aftermath, first responders and volunteers worked around the clock. The National Guard was deployed, FEMA was called in, and the Red Cross mobilized. The rebuilding was slow, always seems that way. I'm sure there's quite a process that you have to go through to get help. Some areas, like parts of Staten Island and the New Jersey shore, took years to recover. Others never fully did recover. Sandy also changed how the nation prepared for storms. Billions of dollars were invested into flood defenses such as seawalls and stronger infrastructure. In New York City, major upgrades were made to the subway system and coastal protection projects began. I think they took a more proactive stance. They wanted to hold back the water as much as they could out in the ocean, protecting everything inland because water does do the most damage, not just to people, but to infrastructure and transportation methods. The scars of Sandy remain. Ask anyone who lived through it, and they'll tell you that it wasn't just a storm, and that it usually is a turning point. Hurricane Sandy taught us hard lessons about the climate, vulnerability, and resilience. It showed how one storm could affect millions of lives across an entire continent and also internationally between countries. For some, Sandy will be always remembered as the night that the lights went out in Manhattan. For others, it was the moment that their homes were washed away, and that's something they'll never forget. For many, unfortunately, it was the last storm they ever saw. When nature strikes, it often reminds us of how small we are. When you think about it, there's such a big, big world out there. Earth is just part of a solar system, which is a small, tiny part of space. We're just a very small piece of the puzzle. But being a small piece of the puzzle, when you put pieces of the puzzle together, you can show resilience. And that's what these people did. They showed resilience, compassion, and the will to rebuild and move on. This has been When Nature Strikes. Thank you for joining me as we remember Hurricane Sandy, the superstorm that reshaped the lives and landscapes in 2012. Stay safe, stay prepared, and remember, sometimes the past is the greatest warning for the future. God bless, and take care. Good night.